to win up to $50,000. You want to win? I want to win. Hey, everybody wants to win. All right.
So the last time I went to this casino, a snake managed to get in there. And crazy, right? And you're probably thinking, like, why didn't you take a video of this? Well, as it turns out, I did. And here it is.
This is real fucking life right now. That was under my blackjack table. Get out! It's a fucking snake, and it's a rattlesnake. That's a rattlesnake. This is not good.
Oh my God!
That's pretty big for a baby.
So I noticed on the West Coast, I'm running into card counters a lot more than I do on the East Coast. To be fair, there are better games out here and a lot more of them, so I guess it's probably not a coincidence. I actually saw one guy up in Washington. I won't shout him out because I don't have his permission, but a few weeks later, I was in California, and I got a text from this guy. He's like, I'm at X Casino, and is that you? It's like, yeah, that is me. Smart move to send a text. For those of you that don't know, don't come up to me at the table, okay? Especially if you're an AP. Like, I don't know if they're watching you, and I don't want to be linked to you, and you don't want to be linked to me either. So, like, if you happen to know me, if you recognize me, you recognize my voice or something, and you have to say hi, do it in the bathroom, please. All right? All right, you guys ready to see my new look? They'll never recognize me if I go in there like this. They will have no idea that I'm up to no good. So yeah, I had this one place that was kind of like, kind of a gold mine for a while, and then I had a huge win there, and that seemed to have caused a problem because I got a ton of hours at this place, and when I came back later that day after logging this huge win, a security guard came up to me and asked me for my ID and said I looked a little bit young to be in the casino. Now, I've been in this casino many times, and I noticed I was kind of doing the wallet dance, acting like I was getting out my ID. I wasn't planning on showing it to him. I was just going to be like, oh man, I left it in the car, let me go get it. And then just come back like on another shift, right? Well, as I'm doing this wallet dance, as I like to call it, and looking around for my ID, which I know exactly where it is, I noticed a suit kind of standing behind a slot machine watching. And I made eye contact with him. I maintained eye contact as I put my wallet in my pocket and said to the security guard, yeah, I don't think I have it on me. So I'll leave. And as I turned around and walked out, I noticed there was another suit watching, kind of hiding off to the side. Like, yeah, I dodged a bullet there. That would not have been good if I gave up my ID. I probably would have been at their mercy waiting to get it back while they create a profile, and I would have been really pissed, and yeah. So, it's better them be pissed than me, right? So anyways, I go to another place. I've been playing at this place on and off for a little while, and they already know what's up, I'm pretty sure, because the dealer called me out and said, wow, that's a pretty aggressive jump. You just go from $10 to 2 spots of 50? I said, yeah. What's wrong with that? And he's like, I don't know. Just seems like you always know when to bet. And I was like, well, I think I do. I mean, I'm definitely trying to win. And he's like, yeah, it's always at the right place at the right time. And, you know, I got a blackjack pretty much right away. And he's like, I said to him first, I was like, yeah, see, that was perfect. You know, it just feels right sometimes, you know. And he's like, yeah, a little too right. And I was like, why? What's wrong with that? I mean, do you have a problem with it? And he's like, no, I just think it's interesting. He's like, don't you think it's a little obvious? Like, don't they know that the only way to actually beat this game is to be pretty obvious? Like, I can't not be obvious if I want to beat blackjack. It's just the way it goes. Like, if you're, like, using cover play and, like, slowly ramping, and you don't have, like, a monster bet spread, like, you're just not going to get to the long run very fast. In the long run, even if you're trying your hardest and using no cover, is already a fairly long time. Like, sometimes it takes, like, 6 months to get to the long run. It's no joke. Like, so, yeah, I don't mess around with cover play. I don't care how obvious it is. So, yeah, this place loves to pick on me and point out that they know what I'm doing, because they sent on another dealer, and she was like, oh, I remember you from, like, 2 weeks ago, and you go from $10 to, like, 2 hands of 50, and then 2 hands of 100, and then 2 hands of 150, and I'm like, yeah, that sounds like me. And and then the dealer after that comes on, and he's like, do you ever vary your bet? Because I'm just betting $10 over and over and over again, because the count was just neutral / negative. And I was like, yeah. And then when the count got good, I was like, hey, spoiler alert, I'm about to vary my bet. And I start betting 2 hands of like 75 or something like that. And yeah, and the count was only good for like 1 hand, and I lost, so that was kind of annoying. But yeah. All right, so it looks like we only have one question this week. It comes from William Donahue. And I'm slightly paraphrasing here because I wrote it down. I want to make sure I get every part of this. But I shorthand wrote that he basically wants to know, is there a true count where you stand on your 16 versus the dealer's 8? And the answer is yes, actually. It's a true 7. And he says that it seems like you're going to bust most of the time at high true counts. Well, William, you're actually going to bust most of the time regardless. So, you know, the reason you hit your 16 most of the time is because it's statistically correct. Like, you're going to lose less money over the long run by doing that. The problem with not hitting your 16 when you're supposed to is that you're playing negative EV. I mean, it's already a negative situation no matter what. If you dealt a 16 versus a 7, 8, 9, 10, or an ace, it's a terrible hand. But you're going to lose less over the long run by hitting it when you're supposed to. Otherwise, like I said, if you make that mistake more than once an hour, you're actually not playing with an edge at all. And so you have to do it, just like splitting eights. Like, you have to do it because, not because you're in a good situation, but because you're making your situation not as bad. All right? He also asks, do you deviate from the deviations? No, we're not in there freestyling, Will, okay? This is not something that we're doing because it feels right or whatever like that. This game is completely solved, and there's plenty of deviations, you know? So you don't deviate from the deviations just because you're scared that you're going to bust, or you think the dealer might bust or something like that. Like, we're in there to make the statistically, mathematically correct decisions. We're not guessing at all. Again, this game is solved. And if you're not listening to the math, which the math never lies, by the way, you cannot outrun the math, then you're going to be playing a losing game. Period, end of story. I personally guarantee it. And one more question from William Donahue. This is a good question, my friend, okay? The importance and the effectiveness of wonging out at a negative true count. You mentioned a negative true 3, and I would never wait for a negative true 3 anymore, unless maybe it's like double deck or something. I wong out on double deck now. I do not get lazy with that. And you know what? That was the best thing that I ever did for my game, was to start wonging out in negative counts. Even though it's easier to just sit there and play through it, sometimes, especially on shoe games, you can fake a phone call and keep counting the table from behind the table. And let me tell you, this is what has changed my game the most. Hands down, without any doubt, is wonging out in negative true counts. I promise from plenty of experience that this is not something you want to mess around with, okay? Especially at the end of the shoe. That's where you really print money. If it's a deeply dealt game and the count's good, well, you're also going to lose money really fast at the end of a shoe if the count's bad. And plus, you're wasting time playing through negatives. Get off the table and go find another table. You know what I mean? Like, you're just wasting time waiting for a new shoe to start, and then you have to wait for them to shuffle in some cases, and that's where your EV goes to die. You need to find another table to play at. I'm telling you, you're just wasting time in the casino. It seriously does not matter, like, how good the game is if the count gets bad enough. You need to get off the table. And, like, unless you're playing with, like, a monster spread, like, even some of the big teams that I know of, they still long out and back count the tables. Tommy Highland wonged his way into a table that I was playing at one time. And so it's super duper important that you do not play through negatives. Let me explain the most important thing I ever found as a card counter, pretty much as far as rules goes, okay? Because the rules aren't really as important as you think. Let's say you have a stand 17 game. Dealer stands on all 17s, allows surrender, and re-splitting aces. This is a really good game, right? And they're cutting off 2 decks. And now let's say we have a game where the dealer hits a soft 17, does not allow surrender, and does not allow re-splitting aces. Much worse rules, right? But they're only cutting off 1 deck instead of 2. Like the other game, that hit 17 game is actually worth almost twice as much money, and it's going to get you to the long run almost twice as fast. Okay, so the penetration is king for a reason.